good vibrations.
So today's conversation could go in any number of different directions because my guest talks about so many different subjects and he's got a lot of knowledge on all of them. So it's welcome back to Allegedly Dave, aka Dave Moore, aka Dave Murphy. Dave, which one are you today?
Well, I'll just stick with allegedly.
Or we could just call you Dave.
Well, Dave, that'll do.
That'll work. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've been on before. Would have been a while back.
Yeah, a few times.
I think you were talking about civilizations and misconceptions when it comes to certain, groups in the world. So that would have been a good few years ago, pre-COVID, I think that was.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So
Um,
I wanted to start out today by talking about your Dave for Leader campaign. Don't want people to get that twisted. I'd really like you to break down exactly what that's all about because it's quite current and topical to these times. And I've seen a few of your videos and I'm absolutely behind everything you've put forward on those. But for folk that don't know anything about this, just break down that campaign if you would and what you're trying to achieve with it.
well, the idea is that to advance a different view of how we live, and realizing that it's the parliamentary system, the entire system that's the problem. That we go through this process of electing puppets. First from the blue team, then the red team, then the blue team again. And for some reason, we don't seem to realize that it doesn't matter which team we vote in, not that they're actually voted in. It doesn't matter which team get voted in. The same agenda goes on. So I'm asking people not to vote, but appoint me as leader of the country, not prime minister or boss or king or whatever, but leader. And I kind of define that a leader is more of an organizer. It's not that I have power over people, but I would have ultimate power over systems and organizations and things like that, not actual people. In that way, the idea would be if I could get a substantial number of people, from the country, out the country to back me, then I could legitimately say I had the mandate of the people, in a way that, let's say, Rishi Sunak doesn't have because nobody voted for him. Nobody wants him. Yeah, but if I
Nobody
had
voted for Johnson either.
Johnson, or you can go back a lot further than that because I can't remember the last time anybody voted for anybody. I think they're just trying to slip that in and hope nobody notices. But the idea is if for instance, if I had the support of a majority of the country, I could do something like declare council tax is abolished. Now, what that would mean is that I would then go in front of, I'll make a video or do something to go in front of people and say, here are the reasons why we should abolish council tax. Does everybody agree with me? And if they do, then I will say, okay, council tax is abolished. If anybody, if anybody wants to pay council tax, go ahead. But I would say from now on, don't pay council tax. And if they start coming against you, you just write a letter saying the people have spoken. We do not, agree to this council tax. And that's council tax effectively abolished because the people say no. It's simple as that. Every time the people say no, that's when the government have to go away and rethink. That happened with poll tax, but the sneaky ones behind government, just really just slipped
Well, they
it
just
back in
changed the
under
name of
a
it, didn't
different
they,
name.
to council
Yeah,
tax?
yeah. So
Yeah.
we have to be vigilant, but that's the point. While the system, while the system remains intact, that's what's going to happen. They're going to keep slipping it in or trying to get it in some other way. But if the system isn't there anymore and it's the people in control, then that's not going to happen. And the point is that people always have all the control. They have the power. They've just forgotten that they do.
Would this way of doing things be recognized by the establishment, though? Because we've seen what happens when people try to step outside of the existing system of organized society. So there's been various people that have tried to bring the likes of Matt Hancock and Chris Whitty and people like that to justice for their crimes against humanity and such. And because they're going through the existing apparatus of the control system, they just all join forces and shut it down, and it never goes anywhere. So what would be different about this if you were to get it up and running?
Well, that's the point. That's the crux of it right there, that the system is set up to protect itself and protect the ones doing all the wickedness out there.
That's right.
So that's why I'm saying we have to bypass the whole system so that it loses its legitimacy. It's pretending to be legitimate because it's saying that the people want them. That's their badge of legitimacy. They're saying that we voted for them, we want them in there, and we want them to do what they're doing. Right? But I think we all know that that's not true. They're not doing what we want to do. We don't want them there doing what they're doing.
But don't they always just do that? You know, they'll launch foreign wars of occupation on a whim when they feel like it, when it suits their agendas. And it doesn't really matter what the public thinks or how many in the country might be opposed to it. They just don't care. They just do it anyway, right?
Right. But the crux of it is that as far as the rest of the world is concerned, we, the people, hate the people, the children in Yemen so much that we want to bomb them. Yeah. We hate the Palestinians. So that, we're sending weapons and stuff to kill them. We hate the people of Ukraine. They're saying that's what they're saying, and we're backing it up with the money that we give them, through our taxes to do all these things.
Well, we were never asked.
It's like we're never asked. It's like we're on a runaway train, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's heading that way, and there's we're just along for the ride. I think that situation needs to end. No more doing stuff in our name that we don't want. Right? It's time that we actually stood together and made decisions for ourselves. And you're right. If we try and do it through the system, it won't work because the system will protect the system. Right? So we have to set up something else alongside it, and everybody do that instead of looking to government, because it's essentially we have a servant, like we've got a butler, and that butler's now gone rogue. That butler's taken our credit card and spending it on stuff for itself. And we have to beg the government or beg our butler for any money, for any help, for anything that we want. Right? The thing about having a servant is at any time we can opt to do things for ourselves instead of relying on the butler. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're talking about creating a new system that sits alongside the existing corrupt one so that those who choose to step outside of that one can do things differently. But would they not still seek to impose their will on those that might make that decision by saying, well, you can say you've stepped outside the system if you want, but if you try not paying your council tax, we're sending the bailiffs in and we're coming for you. So they wouldn't recognize your status as being outside of their corrupt system.
Indeed. But here again, here's the thing, that with the majority of the people on my side, then, as I said, if I say, okay, nobody pay their council tax, and you got now maybe an eighth of the people still paying the council tax, the whole system has to fall down because they don't have the resources to come after everybody. And those that they do come after, this is where we have to start coming together more as a community. Because if they come against one of us, they come against all of us.
Right.
That's how community functions. Yeah.
Yeah. You
So
see it in TV
it's
dramas and such when they're trying to evict a certain person from their flat, and the entire community from that block of flats just circles the bailiffs and says, "You ain't going anywhere, mate. You know, put that stuff back. This guy's staying." That's the kind of spirit we need, but on an entire societal basis.
yes, and that is actually happening. And I've seen it in Leicester, not Leicester, sorry, Derby. In Derby, okay, get around so many places, it's like all mixing into each other. Yeah, in Derby, where they've literally got a large crew now of people who are defending others from bailiffs and debt collectors and whatever.
Yeah, it's great to
So
see.
yeah, that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So, what sort of numbers are we talking about for this to really make an impact, do you think? We're talking like hundreds of thousands, I guess.
Indeed, but I'm being realistic about this. I don't think I'm going to actually be leader of the country, but um, another point about this is to give people an alternative, give people a different view that okay, we were born into this system. We were born into this system and told this is the way you need to live, and there is no other way to live. Well, what if somebody was able to say, look, you don't actually have to live this way. This is another way we can live. We don't need to do what these people say. There's another way to be able to run society. And I'm not coming up with pie in the sky examples or anything. Most of the things I talk about are things that already exist in the world, right, that we maybe haven't heard about. And an example would be, what was going on in Libya before, the Western powers, went in there and destroyed it all. I'm not sure you're aware of that.
Yeah, yeah. We were sold lies by the mainstream media about what that country was really like, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Gaddafi was a dictator, because I never even looked into it. I thought, yeah, I just trusted what I heard. But
Yeah,
as
that's what
soon
they
as you
told
look
you.
into it, you realise, well, hang on, I've been lied to again. And
Yeah.
literally, he was like a benevolent dictator, right? So I only heard the dictator part, but he was a benevolent dictator. He, for instance, lived in a tent because he vowed not to live in a house until every Libyan was housed.
Hmm.
That's a leader, yeah, somebody who leads from the front. We've got rulers who rule from behind. Yeah, they're the ones who will declare war and send your children out to fight while they and theirs stay comfortable at home.
That's right.
Yeah. Back in the past, we had kings and queens who would actually, if they declared war on somebody, they would be out there leading the charge.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Those
So
days have changed.
those days have certainly changed.
And no wonder they demonized Gaddafi so much and went after him and took him out ultimately. And Hillary Clinton's gloating with her dupest delight smile about, we saw he died, or whatever it is she said, you know,
yeah,
disgraceful.
yeah. But they couldn't have that system running in parallel to their system, because at some point we would have turned around and gone, well, why aren't we living like that? Why aren't we getting a share of the North Sea oil? you
They
know,
were one of the few
if
countries in the world that didn't have a Rothschild-controlled central bank, if I'm correct.
exactly. And part of the reason why he was taken out was that he was going to start a currency backed with gold that was going to directly challenge the dollar. So they couldn't have that happen. And he was literally going to unite all the African countries, behind this new monetary system. So no,
Can't have
they
that.
had to take him out. No,
And
can't
they
have
would have
that.
known at the time. I don't know what year it was. It was quite a few years ago now, but They would have known that COVID was coming because that was a long time planned. And I guess he's the sort of guy you couldn't have had around when that agenda was being rolled out.
Well, I mean, a lot of the African leaders were calling it out at the time. I mean, was it
Yeah.
John Magufuli?
Yeah, a few had heart attacks and stuff, didn't they? Just
Yes,
coincidentally.
mysterious sudden deaths. Yeah,
Yeah,
where have we heard that before?
funny that.
But Magufuli was the one who used the PCR test to test like papayas and
That's right.
goats and what have
Goats,
you,
yeah.
and they all came up positive. Like, so he just blew the lid off that one.
And then he just happened to pass away, didn't he?
Yes, and all of a sudden there was a WEF supporter, in instead, who then brought in all the COVID stuff.
Yeah, just a coincidence.
So yeah, just a coincidence. We're not don't want to be a conspiracy theory or a theorist or anything like that.
Of course. So you're clearly not looking to be any kind of dictator yourself. This would be a very democratic process, and you would be surveying people on exactly what they want rather than laying down your ideas on things, right?
Well, again, role as leader, I'm not I'm not the one who's going to be sort of taking the lead on these things. If things need to happen, if something needs to happen, and it goes beyond a community, again, as organizer, that's the role, not boss. As organizer, I'm the one who'll be organizing, the various communities to get whatever it is to get done. That's it. That we don't actually need a government, because step back, what does the government actually do? I looked online to find a definition of the government, and pretty much the definition it doesn't match the definition, and I couldn't find anything in the definition that related to people, because I always assumed government was there to do for and for the protection of the people. But there was nothing in the definition that even mentioned the people. It's all about, just using public money and deciding where it's spent, and that's the key to that phrase, public money. It's not their money. Government doesn't have money. They take it from us. And supposedly they're acting on our behalf on how to spend it. But yet again, we don't have a choice.
We're never asked.
We're never asked. And stepping back from that, the government shouldn't come up with any initiatives. It's not their place to come up with initiatives. It's not their place to say, we're gonna start implementing 15-minute cities. No, the government should respond to us. That we want this, we need this, and how are you gonna make this happen? That's the relationship. Instead, we've got the opposite. We've got bosses, we've got rulers who say, "This is what we're going to do."
Taxation, surveillance, and control, basically.
Yeah. And the example I gave in one of my videos is that, I didn't agree to give, £3 billion a year to Zelensky for Ukraine for the next 10 years. I wasn't asked. It's not on my radar. I don't care. I really don't care about a border dispute that happens a few thousand miles away. It's not our business to be involved in that.
Involving a former comedian / gay sadomasochistic pop music video participant.
Yes.
Who plays the piano with his... Yeah.
Yeah. According to the rest of the world, though, we love that guy and we support him. And, but...
Well, it's because he always wears combats, Dave. He rolls his sleeves up, and he's not some stuffy old bureaucrat in a suit. No, he gets in his green combats and he's ready for battle. Or
is he? Because all I've seen him do is go around all the various countries begging for money.
Exactly. I mean, he's an actor. He's an actor wearing props, isn't he?
but they're all actors. That's the point. They're
I know.
all actors. They're all playing parts.
Yeah.
And if you step back and look at what actors do, they're just paid liars pretending to do stuff. And this is what we've got. We've got liars pretending to act as public servants.
That's right. So how can people get behind you if they want to support you in this?
Well, I did actually ask for a bit of help to do a couple of things like put a website together, and I got very little in the way of help. So I'm putting together a website, and basically so you can just register your support, and also I'll put together all the ideas and the essential manifesto out there. I don't want to actually call it a manifesto, but that's essentially what it will be, just to show, how we would deal with all the things, in our lives without using this system that they've put together.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the very best of luck with that. I'm definitely behind it myself, and I hope you get a lot of support. We'll put this show out and hope that it galvanizes some to get behind you. And hopefully that will come from other sources as well, because it sounds like a great initiative.
I hope so. But at the very least, it may get people thinking about, why this system doesn't fit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, best of luck with all that. So the main thing we really wanted to talk about on this show was to get your take on what I've been discussing in some of my videos of late, which have become known as the God videos. Got to call them something, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is me questioning theology, questioning the true nature of this place, what we are, why we're here, and what the creator is, the true nature of the creator and his or its motives. So I'm not an atheist. I did go through a period in my life where I was, but quite clearly there is some kind of creative generative force, because here we are. Something created this, right? But I've got questions about its nature and whether we can assume that it's benevolent and wants the best for us, which is what we prefer to assume. But I think you've probably seen a couple of my videos, and I'm really just asking questions. I'm not claiming to have any of the answers, but I do have some big questions. So would you care to weigh in on that? I don't know if there's anywhere you'd particularly like to start.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with saying where I am actually. I was an atheist for 40 years. So from the age of 13, I sort of did a bit of research on all the different religions, and concluded they were control systems, and I didn't want anything to do with them. So I've never had any exposure to any religions other than that. I never went to church or Sunday school, nothing at all. In this journey that I've been over the last 20 years, finding the truth, it led me to the Creator. And, a few years back, several years back, I decided to read the Old Testament, read the Bible, for the first time ever. I read the whole thing through 3 times and realized a few things. And the first thing I realized was that the New Testament doesn't fit. The New Testament is a completely different story. And, in order to believe it, you have to essentially dump the whole of the Old Testament. But, my intuition was that the Old Testament was real and right, and the New Testament just did not fit. So part of your struggle, as I saw it, listening to you, is that the tenets of Christianity and what's said in the New Testament, are just don't make sense. They just simply don't make sense.
Yeah, I would agree.
Don't fit what we see around us. I decided on, as a result of reading it through 3 times, to research the Old Testament, not just read it over and over and over again, but try and follow where the people in the Old Testament went after the book ends, and what the story is. Look at the other books that were taken out, and why were they taken out? Who took them out? Also, the motivations of the people behind these the New Testament, and behind the story. Also, look at the language it was written in, because that gives you a big clue to how this, how the deception behind, religion works. So that's it. I started researching it, and as a result, I found a story that you can understand. It's easily understandable, and it's a story that hasn't finished yet. We're still in the well, not the midst, but at the end of that story. So the story is essentially that, okay, first of all, you've got to get, dump everything that you've learned in Christianity, because if you try and view it through that lens, you won't ever get the story. So essentially, this place was created. It wasn't, our civilization now wasn't the first one. The book actually tells you that there were previous civilizations, but the Most High just wiped it clean because it got so wicked that he literally wiped it clean and started again. And the Old Testament is only concerned with the last 7,000 years of Earth's history. So I think we're up to the 6,000 year mark now. So what basically the story is that the Most High created Adam as the new governor of Earth. As I said, there were previous civilizations, and that civilization apparently was ruled by an angel. Right, so there was an angel that was a governor of Earth. And when the Most High created Adam as the new governor, right, the Most High told the angels to worship Adam as they would worship him. And the previous governor, he didn't want to. He said, "I was here first. I'm more powerful than this mud man you've created. I'm not gonna worship him." And convinced a few other angels to follow him. So the first attack on Adam, right? Adam was meant to be immortal. That's in one of the books that was taken out. So he was meant to be the immortal governor of Earth. So the first attack was what we call the story of the apple in the garden, which wasn't about eating apples at all. It was an angel called Gadriel, or Gad, who had sex with Eve, because Adam and Eve weren't meant to have sex. They were going to be the immortal governors. So he had sex with Eve. Eve showed Adam, and with that sort of with sexual intercourse, they essentially lost their immortality. There's a release of energy when you have an orgasm, and I believe that's the reason they lost their immortality. So essentially, plan B was it was going to be the offspring of Adam that was going to be the governors of Earth. So the second attack was in Genesis 6:4, where the angels came down, 200 of them, and started having sex with women and produced their own bloodline, which virtually corrupted virtually everybody on Earth, so that the Earth again turned utterly wicked, and the Most High had to basically wipe it clean. There's only one man, as we all know, the one man who wasn't corrupted, and that was Noah. And it turns out that Noah's wife was corrupted. Turns out she was from the line of Cain. So Noah's children were somewhat corrupted. And a week before the flood, Noah had to find wives for his 3 sons. So the only women that were available were corrupted ones. So the Nephilim DNA got the other side of the flood through the DNA of Noah's children. So so post flood, what was happening was the Most High was sifting the bloodlines, like trying to get back to the original blueprint of Adam. So that's why there was such a emphasis on who begat who begat who.
Well, yeah, bloodlines have always been important and still are in terms of those that get elevated to prominent statuses. But how can we know that Adam and Noah were real characters, historical characters, rather than metaphors, like composite metaphors for humanity generally? How can we know they were real?
Well, here's one thing. Noah's Ark was found in 1960, I believe. So there was a Turkish army captain. He came across a boat-shaped object, a formation in the ground.
Mount Ararat, right?
Foothills of Mount Ararat, right? And the Americans sent an archaeological team, and they immediately debunked it. They said it's a natural formation. Okay. But there was a guy called Ron Wyatt who was interested in the story, and he went over himself, and he took metal detectors, ground penetrating radar, and a few other toys, and went to look for it. There's a bit of a synchronicity involved, right? That shows that he was led to go and see it, but he managed to get to the site and found that with the metal detectors, he found lines of metal rivets that were describing the superstructure of a boat. Now, this is 70 miles away from the nearest body of water. Okay. He wanted to excavate to actually, uncover this boat. And the Turkish government refused. So they were sort of humming and ahhing, and they wouldn't let him excavate. And at that very moment, there was an earthquake at that very spot that did the excavation for him. So that earthquake uncovered all these formations that were petrified wood that showed the entire superstructure of the boat, which is exactly the measurements that were given to Noah in Genesis. The only thing that was wrong with the location of the boat was that it was in the foothills, and the book tells you that it came to rest in the mountains. So they actually went up to the mountains, and that's where they found the actual keel of the ark still embedded in the mountainside. And the final key to the story is that Ararat is volcanic. So at some point in the 4,000 years or so since the ark landed there, Ararat erupted and covered the ark in lava, and it covered it so quickly that the wood wasn't allowed to burn. So essentially, the weight of the lava and the weight of the ark snapped it off its keel, and it went down the mountainside in the lava flow. And you can, if you go on Google Earth and look at that very spot, you'll see the lava flow, which is darker than the surrounding countryside. So literally, that's the ark. So it tells you that actually happened.
So you feel the New Testament is largely propaganda, like political propaganda that was tacked on to the Old Testament, whereas you're more inclined to think the Old Testament is the real deal. But as you've said, there have been books taken out and it's been translated and passed around who knows how many times. So how can we be sure that it's still accurate and there's still validity to it?
Well, here's the wonderful thing about the language that the Hebrew scriptures, not the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures were written in. It's a pictorial language, and it's an amazing language, and I've done a whole video about it called The Language of Creation. It's a pictographic language that creates word pictures. So every letter is a word picture. Every word is a word picture. Every sentence is a word picture. Every book is a word picture. So yes, you can try and translate it and try and move the meaning around, but the word picture remains the same. You can't hide it. And if you really want to get a real sense of what the book is saying, whenever you find a verse that doesn't seem to make sense in the Old Testament, right? Find lots of different versions, and I would say old versions, old translations, not the new ones, because the new ones are just there to use the modern word magic to move the story away. If you go back to the old translations, what you find is for a particular word, you'll get one translator that will translate it one way, another translator will translate it another, because every Hebrew word has 8 different meanings. And what you do in English is when you see a word with several different meanings, you choose the one you like. You choose the one that you think fits. But in Paleo Hebrew, you take all the words together and see what it feels like to you. The whole combination of the set of meanings.
This is where in your live talks you give the example of the films, the film that you can make from the pictures offered.
Yeah. And I was seeing that is the original language of mankind still trying to push its way through our subconscious. Yeah, that's the way we think, through pictures, not words. So yeah, by grabbing all these different meanings from different translators, you can actually look at all those meanings they present to you and get the real sense of what's really being said there. When you do that, you realize, there is no confusion here. It makes sense now. So that's how you know.
Yeah, some people feel that with the Old and New Testaments, we're getting an insight into 2 gods. And many feel that with the Old Testament, it's actually Satan, and that you get the real God presenting himself in the New Testament. And, this goes into the idea that God and Satan can be the same thing, getting into duality. But if we assume that the God of the Old Testament is the Most High and the original creator, it doesn't really feel like great news for humanity, because this God is psychopathic, jealous, angry, murderous, lustful, desires the blood of infants, genocides entire groups. If this is the God we have, then it doesn't fill me full of confidence.
Well, it depends on who you think is humanity. Because
on what, sorry?
It depends on who you think of as humanity.
Well,
because you have man here and you have mankind here.
I'm talking about the men, women, and children of the world, basically.
Right. But I'm saying to you, you don't just have the race of man here. You have the race of man and mankind, right? Something like man, but not man, right? That was a story of the fallen angels having sex with women and creating their own bloodline that isn't quite human. And they're still here today. Okay. Now, have you seen the film Aliens?
Yes.
So imagine that you come across a village and it is full of those aliens. And you find a cave and there's all those eggs that just sitting there waiting for people. Yeah. Right. Would you hesitate about killing every alien, every male and female alien, and every egg? Would you worry about that?
If you felt they were a threat to you and they were going to do you harm, then
well, you've seen the film. Are they a threat?
In the film, they are, yeah.
Right. So what happened was there was an alien invasion thousands of years ago, right, by this invasive species called the Nephilim, right? And most of them or some of them didn't look even human. And in the Old Testament, it tells you that some of them were called the terrors. They barely looked human, right? But they were bloodthirsty, man-eating, and utterly wicked. Right? And the Most High said, when you'll find that most of the time you talk about going in and destroying everybody, right? He's talking about the Canaanites, right? So let me step back and tell you who the Canaanites were, okay? So I mentioned that Noah's wife, right, was corrupted. Right? If you do a bit of digging, you find that Noah's wife was somebody called Naamah, right? And she was of the line of Cain. She wasn't completely wicked, but she still had the bloodline of the line of Cain. And Cain came out of the union of Gad and Eve, right? So he was like the forerunner of the Nephilim. So she was corrupted, and Noah's sons were corrupted as well, right? Because of that. Now, there's a story early on in Genesis where just after the flood, Noah, gets drunk, and his son Ham goes in and apparently sees him naked, and then there's a curse, right? Well, when you examine that, you'll find that this phrase to uncover your father's nakedness, it actually means to sleep with the father's wife. Okay, you'll find that echoed in Leviticus. Okay, so what happened was that Ham went and slept with his mother Naamah. Now again, Naamah was of the line of Cain, who were sort of performing all wicked deeds anyway. So she wasn't innocent in that, I don't think. So Ham wasn't cursed because of that. It was Canaan, his son, who was the offspring of Naamah and Ham. Okay, because the Old Testament goes to great lengths to say, right, and Canaan, who was the son of Ham, right, and not the son of Noah, because it was with Noah's wife, right? So here's the thing. It represents a concentration of Nephilim DNA, because Ham was already, compromised. Naamah was compromised, right? And literally this direct incest, right, was concentrated this Nephilim DNA, such that all the post-flood Nephilim were Canaanites, children of Canaan. Right. So again, all this destruction, said to kill all these, everyone out of a village. It was the Canaanites who were totally corrupted. And it seems like if you look in the book of Jasher, the Canaanites were actively promoting, the Nephilim traits in their society, because they in again the book of Jasher, it tells you that when Jacob's children went against the seven or nine Canaanite nations, each one of those nations had a whole set of what they called mighty men or giants that they were used to try and fight the Israelites. So it looks like they were actively trying to create these mighty men, right, and promote this Nephilim DNA.
So you're saying,
yeah.
You're saying that when God or the Most High is genociding all these groups, it's not people as we understand it, it's Canaanites. Why is this not made clearer then in the Old Testament? If this is a book that's been sent to guide us and give us wisdom and knowledge, why is it so difficult to intuit this? Because you have to really decode what it's saying to get to this kind of information, because what's implied on the surface is that this God is a psychopath and he enjoys murdering people and demanding the sacrifice of firstborn infants and this kind of thing. That's what you take away from it when you read it on the surface. So why was it not made clearer and more direct if it was intended to enrich mankind's knowledge?
Because you discount the active influence of the Nephilim bloodlines. So the Nephilim bloodlines, well, they were, and this is where the actual battle comes in, right? Remember I said that the Most High post-flood was sifting the bloodlines so that he could get back to the original bloodline of Adam, right? So what happened was he chose a very particular line of people, and he was sort of nudging the people in that bloodline to marry certain people. So it went through a set of chosen ones. So Abraham was a chosen one, and he was told to marry his half sister, again to keep the bloodline, clean as such. And then I think before Sarah, his wife, half sister, before she conceived, Sarah gave an Egyptian handmaid for him to have a child with, but he wasn't chosen because he wasn't right bloodline. So Isaac was the chosen one because he was the bloodline of Abraham and Sarah. And when it came down to his children, something new happened. So the firstborn, all the fallen angel DNA was concentrated in the firstborn, Esau. And in Jacob, there was none of the fallen angel DNA. So now Jacob's line was now considered clean. It was back to the original bloodline of Adam. Okay, so that set up this rivalry. It's more than a rivalry; it's a hatred between the representatives of the fallen angels and the children of the Most High, and that's the battle that's been going on ever since that time. Now, those Edomites, as they're called, they became the Greeks and the Romans, and that's why certain books were taken out, because the book of Jasher, for instance, tells you that they became the Greeks, and then the Romans. It tells you they became Romans. Some of the books of the Apocrypha, especially the rest of Esther, tells you that they became Greeks as well. So it was, these Edomites, the enemies of the Israelites, who decided what books were to be taken out and what verses were to be taken out, and what to add into it, which is the New Testament. Now, if you try and, as I said to you earlier, if you try and look at the story through the lens of the New Testament, you won't get it. And they I don't know if this was an accident or something, but they left in Genesis 6:4, that one line that says that the Nephilim, right? There were Nephilim on the earth, and they came about through the union of angels and human women. Right? I can only imagine that they missed that one, and if they'd left that out, we wouldn't have known about it. But they also took out the Book of Enoch, which the Book of Enoch gives you, total detail about that event. Where you've got one line in the Old Testament, you've got books and books of what happened, with these fallen angels, right? So, I mean,
God just seems bipolar, to be honest, between the Old and New Testament. He's got a completely different personality.
The Most High isn't in the New Testament. He's not in there at all. He never speaks in the New Testament.
So what about the figure of Jesus? Are you saying that Jesus was a historical figure, or do you think that's astrotheology, or what's your view on Jesus?
He was made up. Right?
Right.
When you research it, you'll find things like the Codex Sinaiticus. The Codex Sinaiticus is the first version of the New Testament, right? And there's whole loads of stuff that's missed out, and there's no allusion to this character being the son of the Most High or ascending into heaven afterwards. Yeah, there's nothing of that. So it was added in later, right? the New Testament was a fraudulent work, right, designed to do certain things. Right now, if you got to remember that the whole of the Old Testament is about and for the Israelites, nobody else, just the Israelites. Okay, so the New Testament is about keeping the Israelites under control, so they could be exterminated. So, in
Bloody hell, I
the
thought I pissed off Christians, Dave.
No, you have no idea. You have no idea. The whole of the Inquisitions is about trying to convert the Israelites to JC. That's what that was all for. You know, you're told about it was pagans. No, it was the Israelites. That's who they were targeting. And then when they couldn't do it, they actually ended up taking all the children and raising them as Christians, so they didn't know any better. So yes, it's we've been in a war. There's been a war raging for thousands of years, and you know, most people don't know it's been happening.
So
And
where does that
culmination.
leave us now? I mean, what relevance does this have for us today? Where are we
The
with
relevance
this now?
The relevance is that right now we're in a time called the confusion of faith. So, you know, people, you know, hearing this will hear race. They'll go, oh, it's racism. I'm talking about black people and white people not being whatever. You can't look at somebody and know who they are, because one of the weapons of war of this bloodline is rape. Right? It's literally they'll infiltrate a population, and this is how they wage war. They will infiltrate a population, a few at a time, and eventually take positions of power. And once they've got enough power, they will kill all the men, rape all the women, and rename themselves as the original population, and then change history so you don't know about the original population. So that process is still happening today. Right. So, you know, 300 years ago, an Australian was a very black man. Now an Australian is a white European. Right. Same with America. America was a copper colored man, and now he's a white European. And so that's the people were called, you know, this bloodline, they were called the name stealers. That was what they were known as. Yeah, and what they would do is if a traveler trying to go to China to trade would go through their lands, they would invite this stranger in and, you know, give them a nice meal and sit down, give them lots of drink and have a nice time with them, right? Find out everything they can find out about them, and then kill them, and then go to make the deal themselves, right? So they were known as imposters and name stealers, and that's who this bloodline are today. So you've got a lot of people walking around, especially in the UK, who look white, but they're actually black people. You know, the whole of the Irish population, for instance, they were originally black people. They were the Israelites. Ireland, you know, in Paleo Hebrew means land of the Hebrews. Yeah. Britain or Britannia means land of the covenant. So a British man, again, that's another Paleo Hebrew word, two words, Briat and Aish, which means covenant man, the covenant between Abraham and the Most High. So the Irish were black people, and when Oliver Cromwell took over, his job was to exterminate the Irish. So he literally went in and killed as many Irishmen as he could. And those he didn't kill, they transported to their new colonies in the Caribbean. Now, he essentially did his job because Ireland's population went down by 40%. Essentially, all the men gone. So how does a population of black women, you know, continue? Well, what happened was Oliver Cromwell couldn't pay his men, his soldiers. So he gave his soldiers lands in Ireland, and those lands came with titles. And so the new landowners would rape the women. The darker skinned offspring would get transported. The lighter skinned ones got to stay. You do that for 300 years, and you end up with this white population of German descendants, right? Who, as it happens, didn't achieve white status until 1940. And even when they achieved white status in Britain, the Irish still had the stigma, and it's called the one drop rule. You know, 1 drop of Negro blood makes you a Negro. They still had the stigma of having that 1 drop of Negro blood, because when my parents came over from the Caribbean, they saw signs that said, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, because the Irish still had the stigma. I hope that makes sense.
Breeding out genetics over several generations by design.
Yes, it only takes 3 generations to get rid of the color. And you can watch a film called Rabbit Proof Fence, where they literally lay it out, with respect to Australia, as it happens, but they lay out the process. And the guy gets up and he was doing a presentation, and he says, here's the answer to what we should do about these black people. Yeah, if we, within 3 generations, the infiltration of white blood, he says, stamps out the black, and it simply breeds out the black people. But
you've claimed that. Yeah, sorry, you've claimed that British royals in the past were black.
Yes, they were. In fact, Charles II was essentially the last black king. So it's quite funny that now we've got Charles III. But Charles II was the last black king of this country. He's memorialized because his nickname was the Black Boy, because he was so dark as a child. They called him the Black Boy. And that's why you've got the Black Boy Inn and Black Boy Lane and all that, these places named after him, in honor of King Charles II.
Yeah. Did he have sausage fingers as well?
No, he was apparently a very tall, handsome, dashing figure as well.
Not like this one.
There's I'm totally unlike this one, because what you've got on the throne now is a Germanic bloodline. So they're not the real bloodline. They're Germans who usurped the throne. Yeah. And that's why they took the name Windsor, so they wouldn't be seen as Germans anymore.
Yeah.
They're the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha Battenberg family.
Yeah.
So no, they married into that bloodline, married into the real royalty, but they're not actually the bloodline.
Yeah. So with these videos I've been doing recently, there's a couple of big questions, and I think I'm going to ask these of every guest that comes on for a conversation of this nature to get their take on it, because these are questions that I'm grappling with, and they're very, very big. The first one is why nature is so brutal, thinking about the animal kingdom, the food chain, the fact that creatures need to murder other creatures in the billions every single day just to get food to survive. It's horrific, it's brutal, it's a bloodbath. Why would any loving, benevolent creator want a situation with that much pain and suffering and fear and death?
Well, do you know that within your body there are cells that consume other cells? There's loads of them. There's millions and billions of cells get consumed by other cells every single day. Right? Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, well, there are. There's a whole ecosystem, right, operating in your body where where certain cells are produced and they're overproduced, then other cells appear to take those numbers down, right, so that your body stays in the equilibrium. Well, the same thing is happening here. The animals out here aren't just there for show. Their job is to keep this world running and ticking over perfectly. That's their job. Okay. The lion isn't eating antelopes because it likes antelope meat. Obviously, it probably does, but it's not doing it because it likes antelope meat. It's because the antelope are there doing a job. They're there keeping the savannah, nice and mowed and taken care of. Right? If the antelope population grows too much, they start destroying the savannah. So the lion population grows to keep down the antelope population. And
Well,
what
the
the
lion gets
lions
a better
do,
deal out of it than the antelope.
the lions, what they do is they pick off the weak, the old, and the slow. So they keep the antelope herd at perfectly able to do their job. And the whole of the animal kingdom is doing that. They're doing jobs. We are the only animal that doesn't have a job, because our job is to experience this place. Right? All the animals are there keeping this terranium working perfectly.
But it's all suffering and fear and death. And again, why would a loving God want suffering, fear, and death? Because
Again,
the
if you
antelope is
look at it,
suffering when it gets pulled apart by the lion. How is
if you
that a
look
good
at it
thing?
in that way, if you're looking at it that way, then look at the cells in your body, because the same thing happens in your body. Cells, which are conscious living beings, right? They're being consumed by other cells to keep the body working.
So how is that a
If
good
there's
thing?
what
Why could a benevolent God not have created a system where none of that was necessary?
It's a system of balance. It's you're looking at it from a human perspective, right? And not a system perspective. It's the only way a system can operate. A system of life can operate.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about your bid to be leader of the UK, leader of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
If I were God, if I were the leader of everything, I would create a system that didn't involve cells eating other cells and animals eating other animals, because I can think of better ways that it could all run.
Yes, but here's the thing, right? A moment ago, you didn't consider your cells as living beings eating other living beings. You didn't consider that because you didn't know that.
Right, because there's no
But you knew
consciousness
that's
there.
what was happening. You knew there was consciousness there. Everything in your body is conscious. Everything,
All right,
right?
well,
In fact,
I'm not conscious of that process taking place within my body. There's no evidence to me of it happening.
but it is. If you get an infection, you get white blood cells that come up to start eating, right? To start consuming the products of that infection, right? Which again, everything in your body is alive. Right? As soon as it's dead, it's not part of your body anymore. So
Okay, so
everything
so
in
why
your
couldn't
body
we
is
have had a
alive and conscious.
why couldn't we have had a human body that didn't involve the replication of cells, that where it just wasn't
Well,
necessary?
again, a moment ago, you didn't see that as a process of, oh, something's killing something else. No, you saw it as a process of keeping a system in equilibrium, right?
Well, I
You're
just
you're
accepted that
just
it's taking place. I accepted that it
right.
happens. It doesn't mean I
But
approve of it.
I know, but again, a moment ago, you didn't know that that's what was going on, right? The same thing is happening out here in the world. It isn't a case of, oh, it's all suffering and death and destruction. No, it's a process of equilibrium. Yeah. If humans disappeared off this earth, right, then what would happen is all the animals will continue doing this, this process to keep the earth and actually restoring the earth to perfect equilibrium. That's what their job is.
Well, an antelope might disagree.
An antelope doesn't have the level of consciousness to disagree.
It has a capacity to feel pain and fear, though.
Indeed. So, are your cells. Your cells, it to the same degree, as I said, right? Would in your view have the capacity to feel because they're conscious, but they don't have the same capacity as you see it as a human. They are doing a job.
Okay, well, I can just see ways that it could all have been done differently and avoiding the
Okay,
suffering.
show me one.
I don't have the blueprints to hand right now. But
Right. But
yeah, but if I was God, if I was omniscient, all seeing, all knowing, all powerful, then yeah, for sure I could come up with a better way of doing things that didn't involve billions of
why
creatures
do
dying
you
every day.
think why do you think you could come up with a better way than the Most High can?
Well, if I were the Most High, then I'd be capable of anything, wouldn't I?
But you're saying then that you can do something better than the Most High. I think
No,
the Most
not in
High
my current not in my current
produced.
human form. I'm saying if I were the Most High.
No, but you're saying that your mentality is somehow superior to the Most High, that you could come up with a better system,
If I were all seeing, all knowing, and all powerful, yes, because anything is possible
which
then.
is you saying you are superior to the Most High.
No, it's not me saying that.
It is,
it's saying
because the Most High
it's
came
saying
up with this system. The Most High
okay.
came up with this
Well
system,
then,
right?
okay. So
Which
we're back to
I see from my perspective as a perfect system, right? If we disappeared, right, the Earth would restore itself, because like a terranium, right? If you get a terranium and you leave it alone, it will thrive, because all the little creatures in there will be doing their jobs. And if some, there's some of the creatures are there to keep the others in check, and it's all an interconnected web that keeps the whole system of life running, right? And you're just imposing your feelings of disgust or justice or whatever it is onto a perfectly working system, and also saying that you could do better.
well, I'm not alone, judging by many of the comments I've had as well. Uh,
Okay,
we're back to one of my
but
original theological questions, which is questioning the
mhm.
nature of whatever created this, call it the Most High. If it were truly benevolent and loving, I just can't see
Mhm.
why this way of doing things would be necessary. So that's what makes me
Well,
question the motives
again,
of the
life
creator.
life has to be sort of structured in terms of life. Yeah, it couldn't be sort of your situation or your solution would sounds like it would be like, you'd create robots out of sand that will do all the things for, instead of all the the process of animals keeping themselves in equilibrium. You'd come up with some silicon based
Well, no,
system. Is that right?
how about animals eating plants? How about animals eating prana, air, even, rather than the bodies and the flesh of other animals that just want to be left alone and survive? That's why they
Well,
run away
again,
when
I
they're
don't
hunted.
personally. Personally, I think that we don't need to be eating animals or anything, actually, because I did the breatharian experiment that showed me that we don't necessarily have to actually eat, but we are a special case. Our job is to experience this place. All the other animals are here to keep this system in equilibrium, which is why there is no such thing as evolution, because in order for this system to come into being, everything else had to be in place so that the system would work. So everything had to come into place at the same time, otherwise it wouldn't have worked, because the whole of the whole of nature is interdependent on everything else.
Okay, well, yeah, I certainly don't accept evolution.
Yeah, nor do I. But the point is that everything has a job to do, and to stop them over proliferating, there has to be a control mechanism over that, and then there has to be a control mechanism over that, and so on and so on. So it's interlocking, and it will manage itself. And again, it's a perfect system, and it's a system that's replicated inside your body.
All right, so how about we move on to my second big question, which there's a
Okay.
phrase which came up in the comments of
Mhm.
my previous videos, which goes, no good deed goes unpunished. And it's the observation that there seems to be a direct correlation, which is testable, between the amount of good work you try and put into the world, the amount of help you try and give to others, like you're trying to do with your campaign, and the amount of suffering you seem to reap as a result. And like I say, people can try this for themselves. I know a lot of people who are trying to do their best, trying to help others, trying to put good work into the world, and all they seem to reap in return for their efforts is a world of shit in various forms. So what's that all about? Because you would think that if we have a loving, benevolent God, if you try and do good work in line with God's will or, helping others, then you'd benefit from that rather than be made to suffer. What do you think about that one?
Right. Well, I don't know about your experience, but my experience isn't that. I've literally been helping people for the last 10 years now, no, 11 years now, right? And put all of my faith in the Most High to look after me. Yeah, and over the last 11 years, I've had a great time. I've not had all lots of crap happen to me. Yeah. Now I'm actually putting together, or I have put together a new talk called Becoming Neo, and it's literally about how this reality functions and how we function in this reality. And the truth about this matter is that we have essentially ultimate power over this reality, right? Using our thoughts and our imagination and things like that, right? We have control over it. And again, no disrespect to you, Mark, right? But if you stare into evil long enough, evil stares back at you, right? And you're focused on all that dark stuff. That's your focus.
Yeah, but it's not that. It's not that I look at conspiracy stuff and dark information and stuff and that's affecting me. I'm talking about other things that are happening in my life. I'm not going to go into it because it's personal. But, it's like my personal life circumstances. And I've got many, many friends who are also suffering in similar ways. And they're basically decent people trying to do the right thing. So I don't think it's a reflection of, I'm not in a dark, energetic state because of the information I look into. It's just shit that's happening to me in my life. And
what I'm trying to say is that, we have been brainwashed, propagandized, and poisoned into not realizing our true power. And so we're like a child with a gun, right? If you're not trained, you don't know what it is and how to use it. You're going to do lots of damage, and most of that damage is going to be to yourself, right? And that's all of us. We've all been through this system that has hidden, our power, which is how to change and manipulate the world around us, so that we can have the experience that we want, right? In my talk, I show the barriers that stop you from changing the world in your favor. And there are loads of them. There's loads of barriers, right, that were put there by this system, by the social engineering, right? So I would hazard a guess that most of the people who experience this don't know that they're getting in their own way. And again, no disrespect to you or anybody else, right? But this is the way the system has been structured, because I believe that the Nephilim do not have the ability that we have. So they are harnessing our abilities, right, to have the effects that they want to have in this world.
I do get what you're saying, and I've come across this dynamic before, and I feel there's relevance to it. But it can apply when you're working on your own circumstances with your own free will. But when there are others involved, other people involved, you obviously can't hijack their free will and cause them to behave in certain ways. And so if other people and their behaviors are causing the problems in your world, then there's not much you can do about that, because you can only change yourself.
No, you can. You change yourself because you are drawing those people into your world. It's as simple as that.
Well, they can be your family members where you don't really have a choice.
Indeed, but you draw the circumstances into your world, right? There's no other way of putting it. This is what I'm finding out. we are very, very powerful beings, but we don't know we've got this power. Right? And again, child with a gun, we're waving the thing about because we think it's a stick, and people are getting hurt because of it. Yeah, and again, mostly ourselves, right? And we're shooting ourselves in the foot and going, what happened? Why am I bleeding? Because we're wielding this power without knowing it. The controllers know how to wield that power for us, and they're doing it, in very clever. They're doing it in clever ways, so that we don't know what we're doing, but they're using our power to manipulate the world around us.
Okay.
I don't know any other way to say it. It sounds rather upsetting because it definitely can't be me that's doing it, but I'm sorry, it is, and we're all subject to it. Right, we all bring in, and if you see some of my videos, especially the latest ones, you'll see I've gone down a progression of realizing this truth that we are literally drawing in all the things that all the negative things in our lives, right? And because we don't understand how we affect the world. An example is if you're against war, and you start campaigning, stop the war, right? Then what you're telling your subconscious or the subconscious, what you're telling it is that you want war, you want more war, you want strife, that's because the subconscious doesn't understand English. It doesn't understand German or French. It understands focus and intent. So even though you're saying, stop the war, I don't want war, you're focusing on war. So that's what you're going to draw into yourself.
Well, I can relate that to, some nights where you might not have slept for 3 nights and you're knackered and you go to bed and you think, oh, I've got to sleep tonight. I really hope I sleep tonight. And what happens is you don't sleep that night. So it seems similar messages are being sent
because you're focusing on sleeplessness.
Yeah, but that to me seems like a flawed system as well. What's the use of a subconscious that doesn't comprehend what you're trying to say to it? That's just flawed. That's not working in your favor.
It's a perfect new. Again, you're focused temporally. You're focused on right and here and right now, right? And what's happening right here and right now is that a invasive species, a very clever one, is now hijacking our own abilities. So at this point in time, right? No, it's not. Doesn't seem like a good system, but in actual fact, it's the perfect system. Right? And again, this is what my talk is all about, and I'm going to be focusing on how we use this system, right, to be superheroes. Right? It's a perfect system because it means that if you try and do evil, then that evil is going to come back on you. Because, in order to wish evil on somebody else, you have to focus on evil. So that's what you're going to draw into yourself.
So if you're someone that wants to stop war, you're saying focus on peace. Imagine a peaceful scenario.
Focus on peace. Yes. Focus on the peaceful resolution to it, and then that's what you draw in. But if you say, stop the war, we don't want the war, we don't, stop the fighting, you're going to get war, fighting, and strife.
So if you've got a world of shit in your life, you focus on a scenario where all that is absent and it's gone and you're thriving now. Keep those thoughts in mind.
You would construct a scenario, right, where of what you want to have in the world, how you want your life to be, right? And then you there's a bit more to it, but then you fake it until you make it. And then one day you'll look around and go, oh, I'm here. Right? Because again, the way the fourth dimension works, right, is the time aspect. Right? The time aspect is a variable. Right? It could happen instantly. It could happen, a year or two down the line, but it will happen. Right? But a lot of people get disheartened because it doesn't happen instantly, because we're the instant generation here. We expect instant results with everything. You switch, turn a light on, and you expect it to light up straight away. You pop a pill and expect to be cured instantly, right? So no, you literally visualize what it is that you need to have in this world, or and then you start moving towards it as if it's already there, right? And that's your focus. Don't worry about how it's going to happen, because again, I talk about how it does happen, right? But it will happen in one form or another. It will occur.
So that's all going into your new presentation. Are you going to be hitting the
Yeah.
tour circuit with that in the UK?
I am, and also I hope to start something called the DreamWorks Club. So I want to teach other people to do this, and at the same time teach myself, because I only really get stuff if I teach other people. So if I fully get it by teaching other people. So I'm hoping to start this club. Now, I initially thought of it as people who live near me, that we actually physically get together, once a month or something, and then go do, set out some exercises and have a plan to get to mastery of these abilities. But I'm trying to work out a way of extending it to people like online. So my first thought about it is that get other groups of people who will meet in their locations, and simultaneously, so on a certain day of the month, right, simultaneously all these groups will meet together at the same time, and we're all connected maybe via Zoom or something, and we all do the same exercises and we all do the same process all at the same time.
Okay, cool.
That's the idea. I don't know whether I can get it to work and get people to do it, all together is another matter.
Yeah. So how can people reach out to you if they want to get involved in your Dave for Leader campaign, or the idea you just outlined there? What are the ways of reaching you?
Right. So the website that I'm putting together, which is not really in a totally finished spot at the moment, but it's daveforleader.co.uk. So it's both Dave for the number 4 and leader, and Dave FOR leader .co.uk. Otherwise, it's allegedlydave.com, and on the front page you'll find an article about my 2024 tour, and you'll be able to click over to the detail of all the dates and how to get in touch with the organisers.
Oh, cool. Okay. You're doing a few festivals and conferences and such?
Yeah. I'm still trying to work out and juggle the dates. I need a PA.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Well, it's a difficult task to try and organise it so you're not bouncing from John O'Groats to Land's End, every other day.
All right, mate. Well, thanks for coming on today. There's plenty for people to mull over there. Yeah. Thanks for bringing your ideas.
Yeah, absolutely welcome. And talk again.
This is just for fun. Vibrations, I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up